You're listening to The Grip, where we take hold of mindset and martial arts. Now, let's get started. Today's guest brings 2 decades of dedication to the mats and an impressive journey through both Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and mixed martial arts. He's a black belt with over 20 years of BJJ experience, 12 years of MMA training, and a competitor who has earned numerous medals in jiu-jitsu tournaments. He's also stepped into the cage himself, fighting in amateur MMA bouts, including a title fight. Beyond competition, he's made a huge impact as a coach. From his time at Different Breed MMA in Lubbock, Texas, to now helping build and lead Alpha Omega Jiu-Jitsu in Laredo, he's been shaping athletes, building community, and passing on his knowledge to the next generation. Most importantly, he's a proud husband and a father to a 4-year-old son, balancing family life with his passion for martial arts. Please welcome to the show, Sergio Olivares Jr.
Thank you. That was a beautiful introduction. I like it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, Sergio.
Yeah, absolutely.
I kind of manifested this. I know I was chatting with Jason and he had nothing but great things to say about you. And I know that you guys are very close. And that was something I was like, yeah, I hope to get him on someday. So I appreciate you, giving me the time and space. I look forward to diving into.
No, thank you for even thinking of reaching out to me. I really appreciate it. I'm very, very honored to be a guest on this podcast. This is the first time I do this, so I'm pretty excited.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you are. So what we're going to do, Sergio, it's everything martial arts, but I always like to first start off with helping our audience and helping me get to know you a little bit more and just dive into a little bit of, where you grew up and what you were like as a kid first.
Well, I grew up here in Laredo, Texas, which is it's a border town. We're almost like in the southern tip of Texas. So, primarily very strong Mexican heritage, but of course on the U.S. side. So, very Tex-Mex. I guess that's the proper term. So,
sure.
Laredo's probably about the size of Lubbock, more or less, 200, 300,000 population. So it's it's a small city, but it's busy. It's a busy city. And growing up, man, we grew up kind of on the bad side of town, rough, grew up poor. The school we went to was rough. So it was a challenge just being a teenager growing up in this little town.
Sergio? Did you have siblings?
Yeah, I have a younger brother. Yeah, he's a year younger, and then I have a younger sister. She's 7 years younger than I am.
Okay.
So I'm the oldest of the 3, and I'm the only one that took the martial arts path.
Okay. Yeah, so before martial arts entered the picture, what kind of things were you into as a kid?
I grew up in the early 90s, so I was really heavy on Ninja Turtles. Ninja Turtles started my my love for martial arts, and growing up watching all the old school action movies like Bloodsport and all that. So growing up, me as a kid, I wanted to imitate that. I wanted to be a martial artist. I wanted to be strong. I wanted to be a hero. I wanted to do all that stuff. And so when I watched all that, that impressed me, and that always piqued my interest in wanting to learn martial arts or wanting to do. I basically wanted to be a ninja. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, don't we all?
Yeah, of course. And then we grew up playing the old school Street Fighter games. Me and my brother were very competitive. So, we weren't playing that. We were imitating the moves we saw, playing, Street Fighter out in the backyard, just imitating moves. And that's what it was like, just basically growing up as a kid and then going on to middle school, high school, dealing with all that.
Yeah. Did you do any sports or other activities?
No, actually not. Well, keep this part very brief. We grew up in a very religious household. So like my parents didn't allow us to do any contact sports or anything competitive. I think that's what actually made my desire to be a martial artist even more.
Sure.
So no, I didn't grow up doing any of that. The only thing I did do was just weight train. I would just weight lift. My dad, he competed in bodybuilding when I was, very, very young. So whatever he taught us, we would just do that. So, I mean, that was probably the only thing physical that I was doing throughout high school. I didn't play sports or anything. Just wanted to be strong, I guess.
Yeah. So then you got out of high school. How long did it take and what first drew you into BJJ?
Well, I didn't know anything about jiu-jitsu, to be honest. I didn't know. I remember being maybe about 8 or 9 when like UFC 1 came out. And I remember seeing the pay-per-view on television and going to my mom and be like, I want to watch this. Because it reminded me of Bloodsport, like, Jean-Claude Van Damme, like the old school Kumite style where it was like style versus style. And I
Uh-huh.
was all for it. But of course, it was like super violent. And my mom was like, no. So fast forward years later, I was already 18, an adult. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do what I want to do. And,
Sure.
me and a buddy, we were looking into martial arts schools and we actually wanted to learn Muay Thai.
Mm-hmm.
And being in a border town, Laredo, it's heavy on boxing. Like there's like
Okay.
a boxing gym almost like every corner basically.
Yeah.
And there was no Muay Thai. So the closest thing was boxing. So we are like, you know what? Let's give this boxing thing a try.
Sure.
And we ended up at this boxing gym. And I mean, it was a grindhouse. You would walk in, it smelled bad. I mean, it was dirty. There was a ring. There was like boxers beating the crap out of each other. And then you'd go to the back, and they had some weights and some bags. And there was like a little old guy that was there cleaning up, but you could tell he knew what he was talking. Like he was a boxer for sure, like in his past life. And he would help us out, and it was like that for like a year. And we never got any attention drawn to us being the newbies. We were just basically paying to hit the bags. And maybe
So was
about
it, did they have like kind of a class style or you guys would come in and just kind
No,
of
no.
do your own
I
work,
guess
whatever
so.
you want? Yeah.
We had no idea what we were getting. We just walked in, and like it reminded me of like a boxing gym you would see like on like Rocky,
Right.
So we
The
thought like in
old
my head like
grungy.
this is it. This is how you learn, right?
Sure.
So no, it just they had several coaches, and there was the main coach, and it was weird. It was like a house, and then he built his gym like attached it to his house, so it was in a residential neighborhood, very hidden. But it was always full. He had a bunch of boxers, and it just seemed like he was very busy with his athletes. That all of us that were new were just getting thrown into just in the bag. Hey, go hit the bag,
Sure.
And like maybe like 8 months later, I was walking out, and he's like, "Hey, you want to do some mitts?" And I was like, "Yeah, hell yeah." So it was the first time I'd ever hit anything besides a bag, and
Sure.
the whole time he was just talking smack to me. Like he's like, "Oh, you hit like a pussy." He would say it in Spanish. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I'm like, "Dude, I'm learning." And he's like, "Keep your hands up, keep your hands up." And in one of those, he just slapped me across the face with the mitt to keep my hands up. And
Sure.
I was kind of shook, and I was super tired, super gassed out. It was a 3-minute round. I didn't know what to expect, and I was like, "Man, that was rough." And so after I left, I don't know. It didn't feel like I learned anything. I just got berated and then smacked in the face, and I don't know. I just, yeah. But anyways, we kept going back, and then just one day, I was a little older at this point. I was about to be 21, and a buddy of mine who's a firefighter, he told me, he's like, "Hey, there's a school that does jujitsu," and I was like, "Well, I didn't really know what that was." And then he had showed it to me because he had just came back from his military training, and then that same summer he became a firefighter. He took the test, did everything. I mean, he was a firefighter at this point. So when he came back, he was showing us some of the stuff that they taught him in basic training, which I clearly remember him showing us a guillotine choke. And that was cool. I was like, well, that was really cool. Then one day we were at the mall. The mall used to have this little bookstore, and we went in there, and there was a book. I still have the book, by the way. It said jujitsu, and it wasn't even spelled correctly. It was spelled like JUJI. And I thought that's how it was spelled back then. But it was Renzo Gracie. I didn't know who Renzo Gracie was at the time. And he was wearing MMA gloves, and he was in a ring. So I was very confused. I was like, oh, jiu-jitsu's, there's strikes incorporated and stuff. And so we bought the book, and we went to my friend's house, and we started practicing moves on each other. And it was pretty cool because it was from the book. Yeah, from the book.
How funny.
And little did we know who Renzo Gracie was at the time.
Sure.
And the other guy that was demoing on the book was John Danaher. So it was Renzo Gracie and John Danaher, and it was jiu-jitsu for MMA, basically, is what it was. And so there was a brief section where it showed like some very basic strikes, and it showed the guillotine that my friend showed us. So we connected the dots, and what, this is cool. Where can we learn this? There's nowhere in Laredo were we able to learn. There was no jiu-jitsu anywhere. There was no Muay Thai. So we were stuck with either boxing or karate. And so one day he came to my house, and he's like, "Hey man, guess what? there's a jiu-jitsu gym that just opened up. I was like, what? You're lying. And he's like, and it's like 4 blocks from your house. And so this was on the rough side of town. Like we lived in the ghetto. And so about 4 or 5 blocks from my grandma's house, there was a little shopping center. And they sold like snacks, like Mexican snacks, your snow cones, Mexican street corn, shit like that. And
Sure.
right next to it, there was like a little weightlifting gym. It was called Extreme Fitness. And it was a small gym. And walked in there, and it's just old school weights, just free weights. And the guy that owned the whole shopping center, he grew up with my dad. They played sports together. So that was cool. Once he heard my name, he remembered my dad, because my dad, he was a star football player, so they knew each other. And so he told me, he's like, hey, what are you doing here? So I told him what I was looking for. He's like, oh, yeah, we have some guys that show up at night, and they go up there and they wrestle. I don't know what it is, but that's what they're doing. Just come this evening, and I'll take you up there. I was like, all right, cool. I was kind of nervous. I didn't know what to expect. So I showed up that evening with my buddy, and we went upstairs, and sure enough, there was going to be a group of like 8 guys. First of all, they were wearing gis, which was something I was like, okay, that's not what they're wearing in the book. The book, they're wearing shorts, right? It's MMA. And so I was watching, and, they were doing moves that we saw in the book. I've seen arm bars, seen chokes, and I was like, okay, then this is jiu-jitsu. They're calling it jiu-jitsu, so this is jiu-jitsu. So I guess we'll figure out the whole gi thing later on. And just so you know what I was looking at, it was upstairs, but you can feel the floor shaking. I could hear them rolling upstairs. Like it was just, I looked up and the floor was shaking. So I was already nervous. Like, what the hell's going on up there?
Yeah.
And they were rolling on these blue, like real shitty mats that you
like
elementary school. Yeah. The foldable ones. Like, yeah. And they were sliding all over the place as they were rolling. So I don't know. So I talked to like the main guy, who, by the way, he's actually one of my best friends. And he was a blue belt at the time. And there was only blue belts and white belts. 2 blue belts and like 6 white belts. I didn't know anything about the ranks or anything. I just see colored belts obviously means advanced, white belts means beginner. I learned that from like watching The Karate Kid, obviously. So I talked to him, and he's like, yeah, man, just come on by, try it out, this and that. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. Where did you get your gi? And he's like, there's a store downtown that sells gis. And it was like super hidden. It took me forever to find this store. You had to walk to get there. And yeah, you walk in, and they sold all sorts of martial arts stuff. And in the back, they had a little, I guess like a little rounder, and it had gis. And they were judo gis. They were all dusty because nobody would ever buy them. So I ended up buying a white one. Thinking Karate Kid, white, just made sense,
Sure.
right? So I bought a white gi. I bought a white gi, and it cost like $50 at the time. So I took it home, and I showed my dad. My dad laughed. He says, you're going to look like a baker. Like if you go to a bakery, there's a guy wearing white. And I'm like, that's fine. I'm going to try this out. I'm going to learn it. And I showed up the next day, and little did I know that I was going to see another familiar face there. Another kid that I grew up with was already doing jiu-jitsu. And he had always been an athlete. He was a small guy, but always super athletic. He did everything. He played football, basketball, track, powerlifting. He did it all. So it was cool to see him. And he's like, hey, man, how did you hear about us? I just gave him a brief rundown. Somebody told my friend, and now we're here.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of helped me stick around.
A couple familiar
like,
faces.
Hey, yeah. He was like, hey, you'll be my partner. I was like, all right, cool. And at the time, I was like 240 pounds. I was a heavy set guy. And I kind of sized him up, and I was like, I think I could take him. I'm just way bigger, way stronger. There's no way he could beat me. And so I don't even remember the technique we learned. And we started rolling, and he made me feel pain I had never felt in my life. He tapped me out like 8 times.
Instantly humbled.
Instantly. I was like, bro, how long have you been doing this? And he told me, he's like, just 6 months. I was like, just boom, just mind blown. I was like, if this 140-pound guy was able to just utterly destroy me, I got 100 pounds on him. What could somebody with my size, I'm not very tall, but it was big, like somebody with my strength could do, and that instantly, that hooked me. And I just hung up the boxing gloves. I was like, there's no point in doing this shit. If I get knocked down and this little guy chokes me out, what's the point of having all these? Well, at least that was my mindset back then,
Sure. Yeah.
And just never looked back. That gym was actually attached to their house. I know it sounds really weird, but it was attached to a house. And I remember many, many nights we would be rolling, and these little old ladies would walk upstairs holding pots of food, because the door to the back led to the house. So they were like having dinner. The whole family was getting together on the other side of the wall having dinner. and they're
Stepping
literally
over you
stepping over
guys.
us. Yeah, like I remember being like deep in like a bow and arrow choke and watching this little old lady like step over me with pots of food, and it was honestly like if anybody else now would walk into that place, nobody would stick around. They would just turn around and leave. They're like, what the hell is even this?
Right.
And my crazy ass just stuck with it because I witnessed single-handedly what you could do to somebody with jiu-jitsu. And I was like, I
Sure.
got to learn this. All these guys here are kicking my ass. Like in a couple months, I'm going to kick one person's ass. So that was my goal. That was my
Sure.
goal. I'm going to get one submission and then we're going to take it from there.
Yeah.
And it took about 3 months before I submitted somebody finally. And that's only because I was less tired than they were. And I guess he tapped to exhaustion because it really wasn't that good of a Americana that I had on him. But I felt good. And I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. And just never look back.
Sure. So if it was a whole class of blue belts, white belts, how are you guys getting the information?
Well,
Or,
okay. Keep in mind, this is around the time where like YouTube was barely a thing. There was
right.
no instructionals. Like now
Yeah.
you can go to like BJJ Fanatics and you're going to spend some money, but you can literally get John Danaher's knowledge, Gordon Ryan, all the best in the world, Craig Jones, all those guys, and you can literally get it on your laptop. And all you need is a training partner that's willing to drill those techniques with you. So at the time, if we wanted to roll with anybody higher than a blue belt, we had to travel either 150 miles north, east, or south because we didn't have anything. At the time, they did have a purple belt, but he had moved to Corpus, and this was before I joined. And he opened up his own school. He opened up a Gracie Baja school in Corpus. So we were kind of affiliated with him for a while. So our blue belts that knew him, they would kind of travel every once in a while and roll with them and bring back what they learned.
Sure.
And we would just drill it. So we were like that for, I'd say about 2 years. I got my blue belt it was under Gracie Baja. And our instructor at the time, he's a phenomenal instructor. His name's Leo Cantu. I don't think he remembers me at all, but he gave me my blue belt. And I remember when I got it, we brought down a guy, but also Gracie Baja guy. He had just fought in the UFC. He fought Roger Huerta, and his name was Alberto Crane, and also phenomenal jiu-jitsu guy. Like I said, he had just fought in the UFC, so I was super hyped. He came down, we did a seminar, and so we had a bunch of, I'd say like 4 guys. We all had our 4 stripes on our white belt. And so after the seminar, at this point, we already had a good number of students, and we were at a better location. Still sucked, but it was better. And it was super hot. It was an aluminum building, right? And it was in the middle of summer, so it gets triple digits here. So it was even hotter, and we were on some black rollout mats. And, I'm trying to survive. We're in our gi, we're like an hour and a half deep into the seminar. And so they get all the guys with the 4 stripes and they bring us out and they're like, okay, now you guys are going to roll with each other. So they wanted to watch us roll. So I was already like shitting bricks because I'm like, dude, these guys, I saw them as black belt, like they were black belts, but they were just on another level.
Sure.
And I was super nervous. And the guy that I was rolling with, typically every time we rolled, I would always beat him. We were on the same level experience wise, but I was just technically always better than him. But that day, he fought for his life and it was just rough. I really didn't think we did good. I thought we looked terrible. And then we ended up getting our blue belts that night, which was crazy. I don't know. It was just very crazy experience. And then shortly after that, we transitioned and we affiliated with another organization or another team. And we just stuck with them till I moved to Lubbock. That was like in 2011.
Okay. And what drove you to move to Lubbock?
I have family up there.
Okay.
And they had always told us, hey, guys should come give it a try, this and that. And then my dad ended up moving. My parents, they divorced and my dad moved up there and he became a massage therapist. And so, I wanted to visit my dad and kind of check it out, see just something different. And I ended up moving up there for a little bit with him. And I started training at the Gunfight Club with Tony Bonello. That's where I met Jason. That's where I met Gabe. That's where I met all the OG crew from Lubbock. Yeah. And, I trained with them for a few months and then I moved back to Laredo. And then a few years later, I still had the itch. I wanted to do MMA. I wanted to learn. I wanted to compete. And I moved up there. Me and my girlfriend, or my wife now, we moved up there to just give it a shot. And we met a whole bunch of great people, and the gym opened their arms to us and we felt like family. And we just started our life there. Yeah, that's how I ended up in Lubbock, was just to get out of Laredo. And we kind of liked it because wasn't much different in size, but it was cleaner. They paid more. It was easier to get around. It was diverse. Had everything we wanted, everything we needed. So we just stuck it out there. We enjoyed our time living there, especially with the gym family that we had.
Yeah. And so, did you stick with the affiliation that you transitioned to in Laredo? Did that stay when you went to Lubbock, or is that like
No,
once you were in Lubbock, you met Delua?
yeah, no. So when I ended up in Lubbock, I had met Tony. When I went back, he was actually packing it up to move to, I think, Las Vegas or back to Australia because he's from Australia. And he told me these people are going to take over. They're going to reopen the gym and they're still going to do MMA. So I was kind of disheartened because I wanted to continue training under him. So I was like, okay, well, we'll give it a shot. And so when I walked into the Half Gracie gym, familiar faces again, Jason, Gabe, Nate, all those guys. So I felt a little bit more comfortable because like I had already met them and trained with them before. And then I met Danny. Danny was actually a white belt at the time, but he's the one that really introduced me to MMA. When we met, I was a purple belt, he was a white belt, but he wasn't really a white belt because he had a lot of MMA experience. So when I rolled with him, I was like, this ain't no white belt. Like this guy knows more than what his belt is showing. And sure enough, that's when he told me he had like, at the time, I think he had like 6 or 8 amateur fights. And he's like, do you want to learn? And I'm like, yeah. So he was actually doing MMA at a separate gym called Soul Crushers. And it was literally like a little storage unit with a guy named Cruz Reyna. And Cruz was from Los Angeles. And he was a ninja when it came to Muay Thai. That guy was a stud. Didn't look it. He was a very short little Mexican guy, kind of chunky, kind of had that LA Chola look to him, but once you started talking to him, man, he was one of the most down to earth, coolest dudes. And if he saw that you were interested, I mean, he would just pour his knowledge into you. And about 8 months later, I had my first MMA fight. Meeting Danny and Cruz to my amateur debut was 8 months. Yeah.
Wow.
And I was already a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, which didn't mean anything because although I felt like I was technically more dominant, the moment we put on the small gloves and we started hitting each other, I felt like what's going on? I definitely questioned my jiu-jitsu after my first MMA session, for sure.
Sure. And so how did training and competing in MMA influence the way you approach jiu-jitsu or vice versa?
Well, it's kind of the school that I was training at was, although it was, they were very good. They were very, very kind of close-minded in a sense. Looking back, all we did really was just stuff from the guard. So I had a good guard, but I had shit takedowns. And sure, I had sweeps. If I got on top, I know how to control, had top pressure. But there was so many things that I was missing in my game. And MMA made me realize that very quick. My takedowns weren't what I thought they were. My takedown defense wasn't what I thought it was. And my guard wasn't what I thought it was. So that actually was like, you know what? It's like I'm having to relearn jiu-jitsu all over again because we were more of a sport jiu-jitsu school. It was a lot of, I think we only did no gi once a week and the rest was all gi. They were very, very heavy on the gi. So doing MMA definitely opened my eyes. And then I started to learn how to wrestle. And I was like, man, screw this guard stuff. Why am I pulling people on top of me when I could be on top, dominating? So it opened my eyes to basically restructure the jiu-jitsu that I had learned. And yeah, it was an eye-opener. And now when I teach jiu-jitsu, I also teach, and even though the majority of the people I have no interest in fighting MMA, but I have to remind them and tell them, some of these techniques, if you ever get caught out there in the real world, these don't apply. You don't want to be doing this. It only works because we're in a controlled environment. We're on mats. If you're competing, there's referees, there's paramedics, so there's times where you're going to have to roll and kind of in your mind, try to practice real life scenarios, real life situations. So it just opened my eyes.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah. Yeah. And you spent over a decade training MMA. You've competed or stepped in the cage a few times. So what would you say a biggest lesson that you've taken away just from fighting in mixed martial arts as well?
The main thing is you got to be there mentally. You know what I mean? Like you have to have that, how they say, you got to have that dog in you. You have to have that. And that's something you can't teach it. I feel like you can become gritty, but you have to want it. You know what I mean? Eventually you can get that grit. And you have to also realize that the fight is the easy part of the whole situation. The training camp is what's going to make you or break you. And I feel like that's necessary. If you have an easy training camp, you didn't have it. a training camp. Like, to me, if you feel like your
Mm-hmm.
training camp was easy, no, you're going to have a bad night in the cage.
Yeah.
So I learned that you got to train hard and you have to stay consistent, because fighting, jujitsu, whatever, it's all muscle memory when it comes down to it. Once you're in there, I mean, it's even faster paced than what you were doing in the gym. One little mistake can cost you not just a loss, but it can cost you your health. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's definitely something that I had to apply that into my jujitsu. You know what I
Sure.
mean?
Yeah.
So
And so, what's the striking and grappling opportunities that you offer at Alpha Omega?
since I started off here as the assistant MMA coach. We had a head jiu-jitsu coach. He moved to Austin, and then I ended up taking over. So when I was doing just the MMA side, I would do 2 days of striking, which was kind of like the blueprint, the foundation that Danny created for Different Breed MMA at the time. This was his
Okay.
blueprint. I was very close to him, so him and Cruz taught me everything that I could learn from them. So I brought that blueprint and I tried to implement it to my students here. So it was a different breed style of striking, like how I always said. Danny's foundation was boxing and Muay Thai, but he was able to structure it to where it fit MMA. So it's basically the way I see it is a hybrid of boxing, Muay Thai, and MMA. You
Mm-hmm.
have to tailor it because the stance in boxing works great in boxing, doesn't
Mm-hmm.
work in MMA. The stance in Muay Thai works great in Muay Thai, but doesn't work in MMA. So
Yeah.
you have to be able to have a stance where you can move in and out, you can sprawl, you can shoot, and that was something that Danny basically created. And it was a system where I felt anybody could do. You didn't have to be super athletic or super fit to learn it. It was something that
Mm-hmm.
was simple, and the way he would break it down, anybody could do it. So that's kind of what I bring to the striking side. As far as jiu-jitsu, since it was primarily a jiu-jitsu school, I felt that we lacked a lot of wrestling and a lot of takedowns. So I dedicate a day to takedowns. So Tuesdays is Takedown Tuesday.
Nice.
It's a separate curriculum from what we're doing throughout the week. And the rest is just, we do 2 days of gi, which is Mondays and Wednesdays. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays is our no gi days. Fridays open mat and it's no gi. The majority of my students prefer no gi, but we stay balanced. We do in both,
Mm-hmm.
and we're successful both in gi and no gi.
Nice. And so, what are the striking time frames then? Because you guys offer both.
Yes.
So,
So all our jiu-jitsu classes, our adult classes start at 7. They run from 7 to 8, 8:05, 8:10, kind of depending how, if I see that they're kind of struggling with the technique, I'll give them a little bit more time to drill it. But our kickboxing MMA side is Mondays and Wednesdays from 8:15 to 9:15. We're starting small
mm-hmm.
because it's a huge difference. I have, 25, almost 30 people on the mat for jiu-jitsu, and then for striking, I might have like 4 to 6 people at most, So we're trying to build that side up, little
Yeah,
by little.
that's great. That's great. Good. I got ahead of myself a little bit. Let's go back to when you were in Lubbock, though, because I am curious. So you started training. You guys actually moved and settled in for a bit. When did you start getting into jiu-jitsu tournaments and competitions? Did you do those before you
I
got
started as a
into
white belt.
MMA? Okay.
Yeah. I said that I was going to give myself a year of training before I competed. And we had guys that were like 2 weeks in and they were already wanted to compete. And of course they
Mm-hmm.
went and they got their ass kicked, but like that drive was there. Right. And
Sure.
I was like, no, I want to give myself a year. And I competed a year later, literally like a year later.
In Laredo?
And no, this was in Corpus.
Okay.
This was in Corpus. Yeah. So we'll get into the whole jiu-jitsu scene here in Laredo. It's changed a lot, but it was very, very, very much like nobody knew what jiu-jitsu was. They
Sure.
just thought that we were weird. They see us rolling around. They're like, that's gay. You know what I mean? Like, they just,
Yeah.
that's what people would think. They thought that boxing and throwing punches, that's the manly thing to do. So, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people would kind of just look past us and they're like, we don't want anything to do with that. But yeah, I competed a year later and it was rough, man. I went into this tournament. It was in a little gym and the majority of the competitors were white belts, and they opened up with it was like a black belt super match. And I was hyped. I was like, holy shit, this is cool. But it was the most boring thing ever. This guy pulled guard and one guy couldn't pass the guy's guard. The other guy couldn't sweep the guy. It was 10 minutes of that. So I was expecting to see some crazy transitions. But then after that, they
Mm-hmm.
started the tournament, and I made the mistake of having a very heavy breakfast. uh, we ended up at a Denny's before the tournament, and when I walked in there, I was trying to size people up, and there was this one guy that stood out he was sitting on the benches, and he was wearing a red gi, just red. And so he stood out, and he was tall, big. He was a white belt, and I was like, I bet that's going to be my opponent. Sure enough, it was. Yeah, they called us up, and here he comes, and he was even bigger in person. And I remember seeing his patch on his gi. It said Alamo Judo Club, and I was like, okay, I'm about to get thrown. And I don't know what happened. We locked up, and it was a blur. And I remember him trying to throw me, and I ended up reversing him, doing some white belt spazzy shit, and I got the takedown. And it was just a crazy, like, it literally felt like we were fighting for our lives. I was so tired and gassed after that. I didn't know what happened. The match was over. It went I think it was like a 5-minute round. And my forearms were shot. Couldn't even close my hands. And the ref raised my hand. I was
dump.
like, yeah, that shit was real. I'd never felt anything like that because I'd never competed in my life. I'd never done sports, never done anything. So that was the first time. It was a big deal for me. And man, I looked at the guy and I thought this guy had to have won. But no, the ref raised my hand. Apparently, I went back and looked at the video. I think in that scramble, they gave me the points for the takedown, and then I held mount for a while, and then he ended up reversing me, and he couldn't pass my guard. And then I think that's how it ended. So, it was a blur. And I remember mid-match thinking, what the fuck did I sign up for? Like, what am I doing here? This sucks. This is horrible. But I got through it, and then they called me for my next match, and I was dead. I got taken down in Kimura like right away. I had no energy, but I ended up getting a medal. I got bronze my first tournament. So that I felt good. I was like, okay, this is cool. It wasn't that bad. Next time I won't eat a Grand Slam breakfast at Denny's. I won't make that mistake again. And just never looked back. I competed a lot as a white, blue, and even purple belt. Once I moved to Lubbock, I was just trying to fight. I was 28 years old. I felt like my window was already closing for the MMA. I just wanted that experience. So I got the first one, and I wanted another fight after that. Just stuff falls through, and then I started working, and I was only able to get my three fights in, but it was a lot. It was a lot of fun.
That makes sense then. So in Lubbock, once you got introduced to MMA, you kind of had that mental switch of all the competitions that you were going to do.
I was like, this is different from jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is you need that in your back pocket, but you need to also develop all these other skills. And I go back to when I was a kid, I wanted to be a ninja. So ninjas knew how to do everything.
Yeah.
I was like, I got to learn Muay Thai. I got to learn wrestling. I got to get better at jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Get better at boxing. So it was just more of like that addiction to just want to get good or decent at all these other disciplines.
Yeah. Well, and something that I vividly remember about training with you in Lubbock was how much of a student that you were. I could tell you were like the first person that I met. And I remember Gavin and I even talking about this, Sergio. You weren't somebody that was just coming in and learning the technique and rolling in class. You could tell that you were also like leaving and studying and doing your own homework or kind of research at home.
Yeah.
So can you kind of explain how deep some of those rabbit holes went and who some of your biggest influences were at the time?
Well, in jiu-jitsu, I was really big on Audrey Gracie, his efficiency and how simple his techniques were, but he was doing this at the highest levels and making it look easy. So it was finding ways where I use little to no strength and still be efficient and get what I wanted. So it was definitely watching him do a lot of his stuff, especially in the gi. And then in no-gi, since we were in MMA school, I would just really watch a lot of the MMA grapplers like, Damian Maia, Matt Hughes. Matt Hughes was a huge influence in me wanting to learn how to grapple. I didn't know what it was, but I was just watching him take people down and submit them, and I wanted to learn that. And then I started to learn a little bit more about him and that he was a wrestler. So I was like, well, I got to learn how to wrestle. And so I would throw myself in the wrestling class, and they were brutal, but I had to learn it. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to get choked. I'm not going to get submitted here, but it's my chance to learn something new. Anderson Silva, huge. Like I said, to me, Anderson was like the striking version of Hodger. He was efficient. His techniques were flashy just because they were so efficient. I mean, never really saw him doing backflips and doing crazy shit like that. But the way he would flow his combinations together, I'm like, well, I know I'm never going to be Anderson Silva, but I want to be able to at least flow a few combinations like that. So he was just a very big, heavy influence. Diaz brothers, for obvious reasons,
Mm-hmm.
and another one was BJ Penn. BJ Penn to me he was like my MMA hero growing up. I just loved his style of jiu-jitsu. So it wasn't really until I moved back to Laredo where I hunkered down and became a jiu-jitsu head coach, where
Mm-hmm.
I started to really, really, really dig even deeper. But
Right.
back in Lubbock, man, it was just a lot of brainstorming with Jason and with Danny.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I didn't have access to these instructionals because they're expensive, number one. And we
Yeah.
were so focused on MMA. So, it was more like us brainstorming, putting together stuff that we've learned, putting together stuff that we were currently learning. So in a way, I felt like Jason and I were pretty much self-taught
Yeah.
in the terms of grappling and jiu-jitsu up until I feel like we met Professor DeLua. So it was a
Yeah.
good 8 year, maybe more, I don't know, of us just doing this shit, and
Mm-hmm.
we developed a crazy ass MMA team back in those days. I mean, a
Mm-hmm.
different breed. People would just see our names on the flyer, and some people would pull out. They didn't want anything to do with us, but that was, I guess, the influences I had, and a lot of
Yeah.
brainstorming.
Yeah. And so now that social media and various platforms have grown significantly, do you have any go-to individuals that you continue to follow or study
Uh,
now?
yeah, I watch a lot of Gordon Ryan stuff, Craig Jones. I do tell everybody, like, for myself, like, I'm not very tall, I'm not very, very flexible. So for me, when I study their stuff, I try to find the things that I can physically do myself and that I can implement in my game. Because if there's something I physically can't do, I'm not going to teach it to you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's stuff that they do that I physically can't do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like the level of detail that they have. John Danaher, he's probably one of the ones that I really watch him because he's just the way he just breaks things down and makes things so efficient. You're talking about a man that has, I think, double hip replacements, double knee surgeries. He's able to do all this stuff. Watch a lot of his stuff, and I just watch just a lot of like wrestling videos. I watch a lot of wrestling videos. Nobody really in particular because I don't know any of their names, but if it's something that I'm covering, I definitely just that's a deep rabbit hole until I find
Yeah.
somebody that's like, okay, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I can attach. This is what I can put together, and we'll go with it for a whole month. We'll be on one technique. And
Mm-hmm.
that's with jiu-jitsu too. I'll just show them different ways to apply it,
Sure.
because I believe I'd rather you be really good at a few things than be shitty at a bunch of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I like implement what I pick up and how I present it to my students.
Yeah.
Knowledge is infinite. It's infinite. We're never going to get through it.
Yeah.
But I watch them and I see these are the holes that we got to plug, you
Sure.
know. And
Kind of fine-tuning the fundamentals too.
since from the time that I took over as head coach to now, they're different. They were very they had a lot of knowledge in advanced techniques. I'll tell you this, I was a brown belt when I moved down, and I got tapped out by a white belt, and he heel hooked the shit out of me. So right away I knew where and what I was lacking. Because although I was a brown belt and I was dominating the role, this guy just inverted. I don't know what the hell he did. I was deep in a heel hook and I tapped, and I was like, okay. And it was like that with every role. Every role that I
Mm-hmm.
had here, a white or blue belt was catching me at least once in some kind of a heel hook. So I was like, okay, I'm definitely missing a huge piece to this puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to resort back to like these modern guys, these guys that are doing all this stuff to start plugging in those holes.
Sure.
So, and I still watch a lot of old school stuff. Eric Paulson, he's a huge, huge influence in the stuff. I love his old school style. I believe that your opponent should be miserable the entire time that they're rolling with you, whether they're on top or on bottom. Even if they're in a dominant position, they should question how dominant that position really is. And then those are the little things that I feel that old school guys had over these new school guys, was all those little, the invisible jujitsu, like the stuff you don't see. And so, yeah, so when I do my studying, my research, it's stuff like that. It's not the latest and
Mm-hmm.
greatest technique that's out there. It's what can we do to get us to that latest and greatest technique the easiest way possible without having to do 20, 30 steps to get to somebody's back. I mean, I know those numbers are exaggerated, but you know what I'm saying? You've
Yeah.
seen some of those
Yeah.
technique videos where it's like, what the
For
fuck is
sure.
even this? Like, just snap him
Right.
down and take his back. Like, what the hell? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of, I got it all up here.
Yeah. And I know you've kind of experienced a few injuries over the years training. So,
Yeah.
what has been some of the toughest injuries that you've had to recover from, and what did
Mm.
that process teach you?
I think probably now I say that I blew out my LCL, but I never went to the doctor to go get it checked. But yeah, on my right knee, it was one of those days, those really, really cold days in Lubbock. And I guess the heater wasn't working in the gym. So it was a noon class and I actually was in a training camp for a fight. And we showed up and there was maybe a group of 6 or 7 of us. So we had a really good group. And we walked in, the gym was super cold. It was maybe like 50 degrees in there. Heater wasn't working, but we were already there. And I was like, you know what, guys, let's just get really warmed up and we'll just kind of flow roll. Well, I thought we were warm enough. And so we rolled and rolled with Kyle. He was my first roll. You remember Kyle, big,
Hmm.
strong, very technical. He was a brown belt also at the time. And I rolled him into like a calf slicer and I submitted him. And I was all right, cool. We weren't rolling super hard at all. So then my next roll, I rolled with his white belt. It's always a white belt, right? So I rolled with his white belt. I did the same technique. Again, I had him in this calf slicer and just wasn't really tapping to it, but I wasn't really cranking on it to like injure him. The one thing he was doing, he would flex his leg up to kind of relieve pressure. And I guess in one of those where I let him, kind of pick his leg up to relieve pressure, it was just an audible pop. The whole class stopped. And I saw my tendon just like, I don't know if it twitched or it tore, I don't know, but it was immediate. The split second, he thought it was his knee that popped, but it was mine. And I just immediately felt just pain and heat rush to my leg. I couldn't extend it. Probably should have gone to the hospital, but I didn't. I ended up driving home with my left foot because I could not put any pressure on the gas pedal. And then I lived upstairs to make matters worse. And I was like I was calling Chloe, I was calling my wife, like, hey, like I need help. And she came down and helped me up. And I told her what happened. Honestly, I thought that was like going to be the end of like everything for me because that's how bad it hurt.
Hmm.
And it took about, again, I never went to the doctor. It took about 9 months to the point where I can actually pivot, turn my kick into the bag because it was bad, man. And
Yeah.
Jason, man, he was one of the main ones because he's smaller and he can flow. It kind of feels like sometimes you're rolling with an empty jacket. He's so
Seriously.
technical, but actually rolling with him every chance I could helped get my mobility and get my confidence back to, be able
Hmm.
to do the techniques. And even then it took maybe like another 3 months before I felt like I could finish a triangle choke on that side because of the tension and the stretch. But
Hmm.
now it's fine. I mean, it took a long time, but that was probably my
Yeah.
worst. Oh, and then I, like 2 years ago, I broke a chip off. I don't know if you could see the indentation on my elbow right there.
Yeah.
That piece of bone's floating around somewhere in here. And yeah, it was just a bad accident. We were doing open guard drills and had the guy in spider guard and he actually grabbed the outside of my knees, right? And he tried to like throw my legs to the side. Of course, my feet were attached to him. So my legs went that way. So I was stretched out. He tried to jump into side control. His knee dropped like right there. And
Mm.
I immediately just felt like a pop and I thought it tore my tricep. I really, because all this balled up. I went to the ER and they put me like in a cast and I was miserable.
Hmm.
It just happened so quick. And then finally got x-rays and everything done. And they're like, well, you don't need surgery. You had a bone chip in your elbow, which was like an extra piece of calcium. I don't know. Over time, training so many
Sure.
years, you like develop other shit. And a piece of that's what broke off. And so now from time to time, I'll get sharp pain and they'll shoot from here to here. It feels
Wild.
like pins and needles sometimes.
Yeah.
And then when it gets really bad, it just kind of gets like red and inflamed. So it's just, the doctor was like, you're going to be dealing that from time to time. If you want to get rid of it, you're going to have surgery. I was like, that's more time off the mat, For right now, I'm okay. It's manageable. So,
Sure.
I mean, I'm the one running the whole show here. If
Yeah.
I'm out, who's going to do it,
Sure. So I'm sure these injuries kind of forced you to adjust your training style or
Oh, yeah.
technique once you have to get back onto the mats. So,
Hmm.
did any of these injuries actually change or improve your game, kind of forcing you to develop new techniques or
Yeah, I
strategies?
mean, I would say that, I don't know if improved. So these injuries will develop skills in other areas to where now I'm healthy, but now I'm doing that stuff and then I can still come back to my old stuff. So it's weird. It's weird. You just have to be careful when you're coming back, be mindful of who you're going to be rolling with. even as a coach now, like I have some guys, the majority of my guys they're real young, athletic, strong, fazzy.
Mm-hmm.
I have to still, be careful with them too because, I don't want to get injured just rolling with them,
Yeah. Well, and do you encourage your students to train around injuries, or do you encourage them to take
No,
some time, like complete
now
rest?
I tell them to listen to their bodies, which is something I should have done more doing this, but it's hard. They're hard headed. I was young. I was 21 when I started, so they're 21 now as well. So they're kind of like, I see a lot of myself in them.
Mm,
So I don't really try to like, discourage them from doing it. I just like, hey man, you're still injured, man. You need to take, I kind of let them see it for themselves.
sure.
And I think now instilling that mentality, I'm not just harping on you to like a parent or whatever. It's literally like, look, man, if you don't take time off, you're going to be out even longer. I know how much you love to be here.
Mm-hmm.
You love it. You're here every day, but you're going to be out even longer when this gets worse. So
Mm-hmm.
either take a few days off now, go see a doctor if you need to, and then take it from there. And I think
Yeah.
now, I think a lot of them are starting because they want to compete. I'm like, you can't compete if you're injured.
Yep.
So it just kind of depends on how you explain it. Like I said, the majority of them are just young guys. They're hungry. They want
Yeah.
this. So
Yeah.
and I have to keep up with them. That's the thing. I'm
Yeah.
twice their age and I'm having to keep up. That alone has taught me other things too, different ways to
Exactly.
control, different ways to wear them down to where I'm not getting tired or risk
Mm-hmm.
getting injured because they're kind of spazzing out all over the place. And
Yeah.
what's crazy is then I teach them that too. I'm like, you're a white belt. If you can at least learn these little details, it's going to take your game to a whole new level. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't just do it to them. I tell them what I'm doing exactly because I want them to do it to me. This is the only way
Yeah.
I'm going to get better. I don't have other black belts to roll with. So not
Yeah.
only do I have students, I'm also creating training partners. That's how I
Yeah.
also improve.
That's great. Do you approach recovery differently now compared to earlier in your career?
Yeah. My wife harps on me a lot. She's always looking out for me. So a lot of it is now I listen to her. Like I take it easy. I'm like itching to like roll on these days sometimes, but I'm like no, no, no. Because I got to think about it. I got a 4-year-old at home, so if I'm injured, like I can't play with him. And he's got so
Yeah.
much energy. He wants to wrestle. He wants to fight. He wants to jump off of shit. He wants to be outside. So yeah, I have to approach it differently. I have to actually take care of my injuries now because I got somebody depending on me at home as well. So it's not just here. I'm not just running the show here, but at home too.
Yeah.
I got my son.
Yeah. And so, being a husband, a father, how has fatherhood changed your outlook on training and teaching?
It's definitely like for myself, it encourages me to keep doing it because I'm here to protect him. I'm here to defend him till he's old enough. So I approach training for myself differently in that sense that I got to make sure that even though I still try the new stuff out, the new technical stuff, I still for myself I find when I roll with certain people, I kind of roll more like defensively, more like if this was a altercation out in a parking lot, how would I handle this? How can I effectively control him and turn this around? Because God forbid something happens and I'm with my son, like what I have to protect him,
Mm.
so I don't want to be doing something crazy on the ground and somebody comes and kicks me in the back of the head. You got to be able to be up, be able to visualize, see exactly what's going on. And so I also incorporate a lot of weight training now. I wasn't something that I wasn't entirely against it, but since we would do so much at different breed, we were doing Muay Thai and then we did no gi and then Tuesdays was gi and then sparring, then it was wrestling and then cage work. Thursday was the
Mhm.
same thing. I was just so
Mhm.
tired that I just didn't have the energy to weight train. But now that
Mhm.
I came here and I started rolling with these other high level jujitsu guys and see how much they weight train, not only are they technical, well, not only were they more technical than I was, but now they're physically stronger. So
Mhm.
that actually opened my eyes. So now I'm weight training twice a week as well. So it's just to supplement my jiu-jitsu. I'm not trying to be, bench press like 300 pounds or anything like that. But yeah, it's definitely encouraged me to start. And it's good for your joints. You want to keep doing this.
Yeah.
You have to be able to have strong joints.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you find yourself approaching your son's growth and development the same way you approach coaching athletes?
No, I mean, he's only 4. And although
Mhm.
he loves doing all the wrestling stuff, like you can only teach him so much. And he'll do what you show him. But then he's gonna, mid roll, he'll go grab a toy or he'll go get a sip of, like, it's just his focus isn't there. So
Yeah.
I try to make it fun for him, and I show him, like, I do show him jiu-jitsu videos. I show him like kids rolling, and then I'll show him old WWE videos, watching like Undertaker and Stone Cold, just so he can just see, but it's fun for him. So I kind of incorporate the fun, playful imagination side of play fighting, but I also teach him actual techniques. And
Sure.
he's here at the gym like twice a week, and he's very attached to one of my students in particular. She's an older lady. She's from Japan. She's a purple belt, very high level. And he's very attached to her. So, like, anytime that she's here, he's always asking for her. She teaches him stuff too, and she's very tiny. She's very small. So, he just loves it. And he feels safe here. So, I kind of want to keep that vibe and that energy, that environment, keep him around that.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think the ideal age is for kids to start training in any level of martial arts? I know they're all very different, but what would you say?
Honestly, it depends. It really depends on your kid. Now that I'm teaching kids, I have a small kids class. And since I do have an assistant coach, but he's a young kid. He's going to school. He works. He's not always here to help. So for me, personally, as a coach, ages 8 to 12, that's a perfect age to start, because they, they're a little bit more mature. They still want to have fun. They're more inclined to, for deeper knowledge. But the little ones, it's fun too. It's just a little crazier. You really, really have to make it like super fun for them. So it really just depends on how well they take it. I do encourage parents, if you have a gym that offers, a 3 to 4 age group, because I've seen some that they start them that young. Take them. You know what I mean? These kids, they have all this energy pent up. They have way more energy than we do. My son wakes up and he's ready to go, and so I think at any age, really, it just kind of depends on you have to see how they take it. If it's not for them, maybe wait till they're a little bit older, and then bring them back, or take them somewhere where they accept their age group. And I think it's good for them to start young, because, like I said, they have a lot of energy. They need something to focus on, but also I think as a parent, you need to kind of see what they're doing. If it's torture for them, maybe wait a little bit more.
For sure. Yeah. And so I'm thinking back on, when you were training in Lubbock and you eventually met Professor DeLua, right? That's the first time that you met him, was in Lubbock?
Yeah. So we had been wanting to find an affiliation for years. So when I got my brown belt, this was back in 2015. I was a brown belt for 8 years. I got my brown belt in 2015, and I got my black in no, it was 7 years. Yeah. I just came up on my 3rd anniversary as a black belt. So sorry, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
We just, like any sport, there's always like a political side to everything, right?
Sure.
And from my understanding, if you're not at a certain degree as a black belt, you cannot promote to black. And so at the time, our jiu-jitsu coach, he only had 1 stripe on his black belt. So he belted us all the way up to brown, because me and Jason got our brown belt the same day. And then we got striped all the way up to our 4 stripes, and then that was it. So we kind of stayed stagnant. We tried to affiliate with another guy, and then that fell through. I don't really know the details on that. And then we were introduced to Professor DeLua by one of Danny's cousins from the Valley. He knew Professor DeLua, so he kind of introduced us to him, and we all, we clicked, and Danny was like, yeah, you know what, this is the affiliation we're going to go with. And, Professor DeLua, coming from Puerto Rico, rough upbringing, we related to him, because both me and Danny are from South Texas, and we kind of grew up in the same culture. So it's just like we clicked, after that, finally we got to know him. He started, coming to do seminars. We got to roll with him. So he got to kind of see what level of grappling and jiu-jitsu we had. And I knew at that time, that it was just going to be a matter of time before I got my black belt. I kind of accepted that, when it comes, it comes. I'm just going to keep grinding. I'm just going to keep rolling, keep training, just keep showing up. My belt it's not even brown anymore. It's like gray. It's like falling apart. Like that's my favorite belt. That's the one that, like, I look at it and I'm like, damn, there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears coming from out of this time period,
Yeah.
So that's the belt I'm the proudest of.
Yeah, and a lot of transitions. So how did you manage to stay connected in the midst of relocating from Lubbock to Laredo? Did you right away just kind of do the same thing where, asking him to come over, do seminars?
Well, I told him what was going on. I told him, hey, we're having to move back down to Laredo, and I'm looking for a gym. to train at because I wasn't really looking to coach. I was actually wanted to become a student again.
Hmm.
So I was kind of looking around. We have another MMA school here, so I went checked them out, and I was in my head. I was like, you know what? I want to cross train. I want to do MMA here, and I want to go do jiu-jitsu. And I ended up here at Alpha Omega, who the head coach was Michael Esquivel. So I mean, the guy's phenomenal. I mean, he's a stud athlete. If you look him up, you're gonna get a whole slew of highlight reels. And I met him when he was 16. He actually started training at the same gym that I was. I was a blue belt, about to get my purple belt when he started. He was 16 when he started, and he just stuck with it. And during my time in Lubbock, he opened up his own place. He opened up his own little school, his own little gym. He got his black belt, and he had a very, very, very modern style because he was up to date with all that stuff. He's always been very
Sure.
athletic, very technical. So he competes a lot of high level guys. So I was like, yeah, I got to learn from this guy. Especially after the first time I showed up and I got heel hooked by a white belt. I'm like, nah, something's missing. I got to learn this shit.
Yeah.
So we reconnected because we hadn't seen each other in years. And I told him, I was like, hey man, I'm coming to you as a student, but still having such a deep foundation and knowledge in jiu-jitsu and grappling, he would also ask me, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think? So we found ourselves brainstorming my old school stuff with his new age stuff.
Yeah.
And the other there was a co-owner, right? And he offered me like, hey, you know a lot of stuff. Like, why don't you want to teach MMA? And I was like, well, I was working full time. And I was like, well, I mean, if you're going to pay me, I could do it part time. And so it kind of started like that. And,
Hmm.
I would help Michael out, on the jiu-jitsu class, the other person that had a higher rank, the rest were all white and blue belts. So it was me and him kind of like co-running the jiu-jitsu side. It's his curriculum. I would just help him. And then I had my curriculum on the MMA side. And eventually he moved to Austin. And so I took over as head coach. So now I'm running both. So it wasn't like they didn't know who I was. I just took over. And then I got my black belt. So
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. And I do think there is something special about these individuals that have started training somewhere and have evolved all the way through the same gym. But I'm with you, Sergio. Gavin and I have moved to a number of places over the years. And so you obviously then have to try new gyms. And there's also
yeah,
something really cool about getting into these new environments and realizing, like, oh, wow, these guys do something different. When you get to really kind of take a step back and realize, like, oh, okay, there's a lot of holes to my game.
yeah.
And
Mhm.
I mean, obviously there's still a lot of holes to my game no matter what, because I'm still very fresh in the realm, but it is cool
Yeah.
to go into some of
Yeah.
these new environments.
Oh
And
yeah. Yeah. I was floored. I was like, I didn't know what he did at all. And I mean, I had to learn something completely. I was like, I'm a white belt again in this, but rolling with them, I got to see all the holes in their game. So when I got to
yeah,
take over, I'm now plugging in what was missing. And
sure.
yeah, no, they're all of them. They're scary, man. They're scary to roll with. Like I'm fighting for my life in some of these rolls. I
Yeah,
got blue belts tapping me out, even with not heel hooks. They're tapping me out with stuff that I teach them. So
yeah.
it's cool to see the evolution and the improvement in these guys. Like it's awesome.
Yeah. So your experience at Different Breed and just training and coaching there, what do you feel like you've really tried to take with you, the lessons or, mindset that you're trying to instill at Laredo now?
Well, one of the things that I learned when I was doing MMA and I started wrestling. I don't know if you ever got to do any of the wrestling classes, but the majority, really the only ones that showed up to wrestling were the fighters because it was mandatory. You couldn't get out of it if you wanted to fight. Danny would not allow that, and the wrestlers. So I kind of felt like in the jiu-jitsu world, I feel like a lot of people, the majority of people do this for a hobby. So when something, and it's already hard to do. So when you do something that's even harder, like wrestling, I feel like people just like jujitsu people shut down. They're like, no, I feel comfortable on my back and I want to flow and I want to do this. So they're two different styles, right? And I felt like, no, I kind of came with the same momentum that I had over there, where it was just a grind. Like we weren't trying to kill each other, obviously, but we were just pushing each other so hard because everyone was constantly fighting. Somebody had a
Yeah.
fight every other weekend. There was somebody fighting. It got to that point. So I
Mhm.
just got so used to that So when I got here and everybody was just so chill and laid back, and I felt like, man, I'm just like terrorizing these people. So now that I took over, I'm like, you know what? We're kind of lacking that grittiness that we had, you
Right.
know? And so little by little, because they asked me to do a wrestling class for them, and literally nobody showed up the following day. They were all dead. You know, I was like, well, I don't want them to be scared to come when I teach a class. This is what I was doing. I'm not going to show you something that I wasn't doing myself. I'll never make somebody do something that I myself didn't go through. So I'm like, man, they could do this. They can do this. Like, I know they can. They're tough. I mean, I see them rolling. They're like rolling like 10 rounds. You know, they could dedicate a little bit of that time to develop a skill and a little bit more like of a mental fortitude. Because
Mm-hmm.
now, if you notice, like a lot of these up and coming or high level guys, actually, they come from a wrestling background. They come from that grit, that mindset that they never stop. They never stop. So when I would watch our guys compete, definitely felt like that was something that they lacked, where
Mm-hmm.
somebody had some wrestling experience or MMA experience, and when they compete, kill or be killed, you know. And when I would see the difference in our roles and in their competitions, and I'm like, man, I know my guy is more technical than him, but he's getting out toughed by this guy. I don't know if that's even a word, but like he's getting outworked by this guy.
Yeah.
So that was something that I was like, we got to bring this back, because everybody at different breed was tough as nails. It didn't matter
Mm-hmm.
who it was, and it didn't matter what rank you were. Everybody was tough. So I kind of wanted to bring that little by little, because there's no wrestling here. Nobody wrestles. I don't call myself a wrestler, but I learned wrestling, you know, and I bring what I learned to them, and I see it when we have our open mat, like Friday's open mat. We have people from different gyms that come and train with us, and yeah, there's blue belts and purple belts that come from another gym, but my white and blue belts, they work them.
Mm-hmm.
They outpace them. They out wrestle them. Their skill is sharper. So obviously, the little bit that I'm bringing back, little at a time, is actually it's paying dividends. You know, because it's been maybe a little bit more than a year since I've taken over, and the improvement, like they're completely different athletes now.
Yeah.
And so I see the difference, and I'm not trying to bring anyone down or bring any other schools down. It's just the level of, I guess, the standards that Danny held for us back, you know, on the different breed days. That's what made the difference. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I can hold these guys to these standards because it was done to us.
Yeah.
And it's working. It's working. They're
Yeah.
going out. I think last October was the first time I took a small team to compete in San Antonio. And I took 4 guys, and we came back with 6 or 7 medals.
That's
You know,
great.
this last time, I took 7 or 8 guys, and we came back with like 12 medals. So, you know, they're dominating. They're going
Yeah.
out there, and the improvement. And I think when we get a bunch of new people that come in, they see that. It's like, man,
Mm-hmm.
they want to be that. They want that. So it influences them to keep showing up. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a madhouse in here. We're running out of mat space quick.
Yeah. That's great. How do you balance pushing your students to compete and grow while also keeping them motivated when setbacks happen? Because I know that's inevitable. There's going to be
Yeah.
setbacks.
Well, I don't push anyone to compete. I don't. I'm like, guys, if it comes from you, then we'll put in the time. Okay. So what we did was, you know, I'll announce to them, hey, 6 weeks out, there's this tournament. If anybody's interested, let me know. And sure enough, little by little, like, yeah, coach, I want to do it. I want to do it. So I'll get like 6, 7, 8 guys. Anything can happen from here to then. But I'm like, I got a third of the class that's ready to get ready for a tournament. So I just kind of like, without them knowing or telling them, I just pick up the intensity on the drills, on the warm ups.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do more situational roles. And before they know it, they're competition ready. Their timing is there.
Yeah.
As we get closer, we'll start kind of playing the drill, like kind of playing drills to the rule sets, and it's been working. I mean, like I said, this is the second time that I've take out a group, and each time it's like the improvements are there.
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah,
great.
that's probably the main thing that I feel like I brought back from the different breed days, was just that mindset, that mentality, that team unity that we had. You know, we rolled deep no matter what we did, whether it was MMA fight
Mm-hmm.
or jujitsu, you know. And it wasn't just the students, it was the family member, you know, the grandparents. Everyone would roll deep, everyone wearing different breed t-shirts. So I want to bring that and build that here. I want
Yeah.
these guys to, when they compete, I want their friends and family to be super hyped for them. Unfortunately, there's not any local tournaments. We have to go to San Antonio. We got to go to Corpus. We got to go down to the valley.
Sure.
So it's a little harder to take, you know, Lubbock has, you get Naga, you get the AGF that's coming down there, peak
Right.
fighting. So all these hometown guys already have this crowd behind them, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
so I kind of want that for these guys because they deserve it. They put in the work, and jiu-jitsu now in Laredo is starting to blow up. Like now there's like a total of like 5 or 6 jiu-jitsu schools.
Wow.
Back when we were the only one. So the culture's changing. And
Mm-hmm.
my goal is to show and prove that we're the best school here in town. You know, my
Yeah.
guys are not just tough, but they're technically better, you know, and I want to keep building on that. Just like we did with Different Breed. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we were best in the West for a reason. You know, I see no reason why I can't do that here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do think that that's one of the most addicting parts about martial arts in general, or when you find a good gym, is that energy that you feel
Yeah.
when you walk into a place. Like you should feel it. You should kind of just know. And then the culture and community.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm super excited for you, Sergio. It sounds like you're doing great things. And it sounds like Gavin and I need to take a trip down to Laredo
Oh, we
sometime
would
just
love
to
to have you
come
guys
check
down
it
here.
out.
I mean, it's you know, it's not that big of a city, but you know, we have stuff to do around here. You know, if you like
Yeah.
Mexican food, you're in the right place.
Cool. Hey, Mexican food and training. What more could you
Oh,
ask
fuck yeah.
for?
Fuck yeah. We can go get some tacos after this.
Right?
Yeah.
I did notice that you were gifted a Marvel X-Men versus Street Fighter shirt for Father's Day or something. I saw that. So I am curious. Is there comic books, anime,
Oh
fighting
yeah.
games that
Everything,
like influence you?
all that. Yeah. So like I said, I grew up watching Ninja Turtles. That was like my introduction to martial arts, and
Yeah.
just wanting to be different. You know what I mean? They were mutants, they were turtles, and they could fight, right? And
Mm-hmm.
watching the movie, that's my favorite movie of all time, is the original '90s movie. Nothing could touch that, you know. And you watch I don't know if you've seen the movie, but there's a scene where Shredder, who's the main bad guy, is coming out. You know, they're doing his villain introduction, and there's a whole crowd of guys that want to become foot soldiers, you know, and he dresses them and he tells them, you know, the outside world rejects you. Here, your family, whatever. He's just brainwashing them, right? But it just feels so cool. I feel like, you know, I come in and I'm the Shredder and these are my foot soldiers, you know, and I'm going to train them to be the baddest out there. And yeah, Marvel vs. Capcom, man, I grew up watching X-Men, Batman, Power Rangers, all that stuff played a huge influence in me wanting to do martial arts and continue doing it. And I'm a huge Street Fighter fan. Me and my brother grew up playing Street Fighter. We're still very competitive. We talk shit to each other all the fucking time, you know, and we're always trying to be better than I don't know why. I mean, we're not out there competing with anybody, you know, but you know, I'm pretty good. I like to say I'm, you know, one of the top guys out there, you know, in Marvel vs. Capcom, maybe, and also Capcom versus K2. Say that a lot. I've been playing that game for like 20 years. Came out in like
Sure.
2001. And
Yeah.
so I play it live. So yeah.
If you could bring one Marvel or anime character onto the mats to train with, who would you pick?
To train with? Damn. Oh man. I would say probably Zangief from Street Fighter, because he's a big wrestler dude. He's suplexing people, so I would want to learn something like that. Maybe Batman, only because he's human, and I feel like maybe I could tap him out on the mats. I don't know. Maybe not.
That's funny. So I do know that you worked as a bouncer in Lubbock. So I am curious. Did you ever find yourself in a situation where you had to just handle some unruly drunk asses?
Like every night, at least
Really?
one person. No, I exaggerate. Like for sure, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays for sure I was putting hands on somebody. But I'm very level-headed, so by the time I actually have to physically put hands on you, there's just no reasoning with you. With the martial arts background, I am very aware of what I'm capable of and what I can do to somebody that's untrained, especially somebody inebriated. You know, they don't stand a chance. They're going to run their mouth. And if they had a problem with you, they would have had a problem with you at the door. You know, they're just drunk. They don't want to hear it. I would never take anything they said to me personal. And I've been called some really nasty shit, you know, in that job. Yeah. I mean, jiu-jitsu saves, man. Jiu-jitsu saves. I do remember probably the worst night for me, at least. I got assaulted. We asked this guy to leave. Mind you, he was a big guy. He was like 6'8", like 280 pounds. And he just was not hearing it. And it was a Thursday, and there was only 3 of us. And I wasn't the head of security at the time. So it was me, another kid, and then our manager. So we were asking him to leave, and he just wasn't hearing it. I mean, I had to look up at him So he was like at least a foot taller than I was, for sure. Just a big dude. And he was calling me I've never been like called any kind of racial slurs until that night. He called me everything in the book, man. He called me a wetback, called me a beaner. And it kind of like, I just like, wow. It didn't really, obviously I didn't take it personal. He was trying to intimidate me, but just kind of felt, I'm like, why is he calling me all these names, right? So anyways, we finally convinced him to walk out. And, the manager told him, hey, we're going to call the cops. Because we just didn't want to get physical. He was just too big of a guy. But in the back of my head, I was like, if he gets physical, I know I could take him, obviously. So the cop thing worked. He walked out. And right as he got out the second set of doors, he kind of had like change of heart. He turned around and he came back in. And I don't know if you remember where I worked. We had like a little glass foyer. It was like set of double doors and then another. This was like a 10 by 10 foot square space, something like that. And I walked in and I'm like, hey man, you're not coming in. We're done. That's it. You're out. You're not coming back in. And my manager comes to the door and he kind of like peeks his head open. He's telling the guy, hey man, you have to leave. We already told you to leave. You're causing a scene. He's like, oh, you want to see me cause a scene? He takes his shirt off and he's looking at my manager and I'm standing right next to him and he just clocks me with the left hook, like just sucker punches me. And I was like, oh, shit, it's going down. And the whole situation probably lasted, because I saw the security video, lasted like 17 seconds. And I remember, it's crazy. That's what I mean. Fighting is muscle memory. I don't remember doing this. I just remember getting hit. I hit him with the double leg. This is what I remember. Hit him with the double leg. And then in my mind, I was starting to scoop his legs out to like, I was going into straight fight mode, MMA mode, right? But I was like, fuck, I got to get this guy out. This isn't the point of this, right? So I let him get back up. And then just like 280 pounds, I scooped him up over my shoulders and body slammed him through the double doors. And then I did hit him one time just to like, because he was getting up. He was getting back up.
Yeah.
And so when I went back and watched the video, he hit me, right? Hit me with his left. My head goes this way. He swung a second time, but I weaved my head out of the way and cracked him with like a body shot and then hit him with the double leg. I don't remember any of that. But that's where the security footage was showing. And when I hit him up against the glass, I thought we were in the movies, like typical Roadhouse, they kick the guy through the glass. I thought we were going to fly through the glass, but we didn't. And the reason for that was because we were smashing my manager between the glass and the guy's back. So we were smushing. He was like smushed up against the glass and me and him are like trading shots. And I had no idea that he was even back there. But that's the reason why we didn't fly through the glass. I still believe that. Cause I literally hit him as hard as I could because he was so big.
Right.
And, but even then I felt with that, like I felt like if he would have hit anybody else, somebody that doesn't train, that's never been, you don't have the neck or shoulder muscles that these fighters have. I think he would have seriously hurt somebody else.
Right.
And why he chose to punch me, I don't know. I think he was just trying to go out in a blaze of glory, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
He ended up walking. We let him go and he left and the cops finally showed up. And I'm like, yeah, I pressed charges on the guy. I'm like, no, dude, I was trying to do my job and he assaulted me. That's what it was. I defended myself.
Yeah.
I shit you not. Right after that, I got the position for head of security. So pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was probably the worst.
Level up.
Yeah, no, that was the worst. That was probably the worst that I personally went through. We had a lot of really bad nights. There's nights where brawls were breaking out inside of the bar and then spilling out into the parking lot. And yeah. So yeah, I got to use my jiu-jitsu in real life situations. So you feel like Superman. I'll tell you that much. Against a normal person, doesn't matter how big they are, you will feel like Superman.
Yeah. Well, in those situations, you had a number of coworkers. Was there any criteria to be a security or a bouncer? I mean, because I would assume not everybody had martial arts or some level of background.
So what I would do is, if I was going to interview somebody, I wanted to look for somebody that was coachable and somebody that could talk to people. Because being tough isn't what, like, yes, you have to have some toughness, but at least if you want to be successful at it, you have to be smart. You have to be able to use your brain first and be able to talk to people, because you're coming in and you're basically ruining somebody's vibe. They're having a good time and you're here, you're the party pooper. And now you're telling them they got to go. They got to leave for whatever reason. So you're already putting yourself in a situation where you're not going to get probably a good reaction from them. Very seldomly did I have somebody be like, you know what, man, you're right. I've had too many to drink. It's time for me to go home. I had one guy, he was he actually tipped me. He gave me the $30 tip when like, you were the nicest bouncer. You weren't an asshole. There's guys at other bars around here that just beat the shit out of you. I'm like, bro, he just had too many to drink. You got to go home. Like, that's it, man. And he's like, I
Yeah.
want to tip you, man. I want to tip you. And he gave me $30 for kicking him out. So, and I always use that as an example when I needed to hire somebody. I said, the other stuff, we'll figure it out, man. You're never going to do anything alone. Okay. So if it's a slow night and there's a table of like 4, 5, 6 people, you got to tell them to go, and they don't call the cops. Just tell them, hey, if
Mm-hmm.
you don't leave, we're going to call the police. You don't need to be that tough guy. You know what I mean? You're getting
Right.
paid like $13 an hour, but you know what I mean? You got an exam the next day. You don't need to be getting your ass beat out here.
Yeah.
So for me, it was more like hiring people that were coachable, that I can, train them on how to do this. And then I would offer, because it wasn't obviously mandatory or part of the job, but I would offer, hey, this day we're going to get together at Different Breed. If you want to, we're going to go over stuff, some training stuff for work to help you out, kind of build some confidence.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys want to come, free of charge. So it would help me, because I
Yeah.
had guys that were confident, because I'm not a big guy, but I was the head guy.
Mm.
So if there was anybody that was going to get punched in the face, it was going to be me, because I was the point man. I was the one that was going to go and do all the talking, and these guys were here
Mm-hmm.
to back me up if I needed it. If I needed it, you know.
Right.
So I would, once a week, I would have maybe not all of them come in at the same time, but half of them, and then the other half would come in the next time we would do that. And then I did have, you remember Brennan and Summer?
Mm-hmm.
They were helping me out, so it helped to have at least 2 other guys that were trained, but the rest of them were not. A lot of them would come in with the chip on their shoulder. This was at the time, was the coolest bar in town. A lot of girls. These guys thought they're like, oh, I'm gonna hit on chicks the whole. No, no, dude. People are walking in with, you didn't ID them, like, so I would really, I'd give them a trial run, and if I saw they weren't really the material that I was looking for, I would tell my manager, and maybe would place them somewhere else that we could play to their
Sure.
strengths. And then I had guys that be like, well, we don't want to check IDs anymore. We want to be out inside kicking people out. I was like, well, this is where I started, and this is where you're going to start. So you got to build the patience out here, because when it's one in, one out, and you got a line that's wrapped around the building, these people want to get in, they start to get really unruly, and they start to say shit to you,
Right.
if you can't build the patience with these people out here, you're not going to have it in there. So,
Yeah.
I would make sure that everybody put their time in where they needed to. And a lot of it was just kind of like playing chess. I would play to their strengths and strategize and put my guys. I mean, you've been there. It was a huge bar.
Mm-hmm.
And at one time we had 9 guys, and corporate was like, nah, we're going to drop it down to 6. It was like 1,500 people in there. So I
Yeah.
had to do a lot more with a lot less. So yeah, it was crazy, man. Those are crazy,
Yeah.
crazy days. I never thought I would do that. I actually came in from working like finance or like banking into bouncing. It was just a huge transition, but I
Yeah.
got good at it. I just kind of took what I learned as a coach when I was coaching at
Yeah.
Different Breed, and kind of just implemented it, learned
Yeah.
the bar rules and laws. I had my martial arts background in the back pocket if I needed to use it. But then we also had
Mm-hmm.
police officers who, you know what? Let's just go get the guy with the badge and get this guy to leave. Why were I
Mm-hmm.
going to get my hands dirty? But
Exactly.
there's
Makes
always
sense.
always one guy to push
Yeah.
those buttons. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, after 20 years on the mats, what's one principle from martial arts that you try to carry into everyday life?
Don't give up. If you want to get good at something, you just can't give up. You got to keep doing it. Keep doing it. Keep showing up. No matter how many times you fall, what matters is how many times you get back up. And
Mm.
that's with anything. You know what I mean? If you want to, I don't know, improve in your job. Like, what do you have to do to move up the next level? You probably have to take on some new responsibilities. You have to learn some new shit. It's like anything. Jiu-jitsu,
Mhm.
you want to learn something new, you got to do it. You got to put in the time, you got to put in the mat time, and you have to drill. And then before you know it, you're hitting the move that you wanted to do. And then
Right.
before you know it, your coach, your professor is striping you because you're improving. And then the next level is the belt. So it's like it's anything. You just got to keep going, pushing. Just push, push, push,
Mhm.
1% better every day. If you look for big results from one day to the next, you're just going to disappoint yourself. In other words,
Mhm.
trust the process.
Yeah. How do you define success now as a coach, competitor, parent?
Man, taking it one day at a time. One day at a time. I'm not a super organized person, so I don't have anything written down. I kind of prioritize everything in my head. and just take it as it comes, because we're all human. Sometimes I'm nervous about shit that I'm going to do the month before. Like I was nervous about this, all last week. I was just excited. You know what I mean? Like I was just excited to do this. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this. So, it's still unknown. Obviously I know I was already comfortable with that, but it's still unknown territory. So you just, like I said, if you would have told me this, hey, next month we're going to do this, I'd probably be tripping about it for a whole month. But I just try my best to, what's at stake. Okay, today's Monday. I got the kids class. So let me focus. Let me focus on that and make sure the curriculum is tight and everything. And just, like I said, just take it a day at a time. Know your priorities, but, strategize, like what's more important. Like, this is what has to be done. So we're going to do that. And then we can build to the next thing.
Yeah. And I think everybody can relate to that because it's so easy to get caught up in what's already happened in the past or what's to come. And so to just take it one day at a time, roll with the punches.
Yeah, exactly.
And stay present.
Yep.
All right, Sergio. Well, I always end every episode with 2 main questions. So the first one is, what is something you wish didn't have as much of a grip on you in your life?
I think right now, given the circumstances of how like the world is going on, there's all this crazy shit going on. And I feel like sometimes like I see other people, financially doing a lot better. So I have to kind of like bring myself back. Like, no, that's their situation. This is your situation. And the situation around the world is a lot of stuff that we ourselves have no control over. So it's just having to remind myself to control the things that I can control and forget about the things that I can't. I know it has nothing to do with like martial arts or anything like that, but a lot of crazy shit. And as a parent now, you worry about the future. I worry about my son's future. So I guess I wish that didn't have any kind of grip on me.
Yeah. What's something that you wish you had more of a grip on in your life?
Gee, I don't know. I kind of feel like I have everything that I need and want already here. I really can't think of anything right now. That's a good question, though. That's a good question.
That's a good sign, though, too, Sergio. Yeah. Is just honestly even being aware that, hey, I got everything I need right now. Yeah. And it really does sound like that. You got a great family. You're killing it in the gym right now. And so being able to just take a second and realize like, hey, I got it all right now. And I need to sit back and cherish that and realize the blessings that are in your life, which is pretty awesome.
Thank you.
All righty, sir. Well, people that are listening are going to want to follow along. And so the best way would be through Instagram, I'm assuming, following Alpha Omega Jiu-Jitsu.
Alpha Omega Jiu-Jitsu, or you can follow me on my personal page, Matt Daddy BJJ. So I don't know why I came up with that name. I don't know. Just I'm always on the mats and I'm a dad. So Matt Daddy.
Hey. It's got a ring to it for sure.
Yeah.
And I will make sure to link those in the show notes. So for anybody listening, check them out. And please, if you're in Laredo area, go check out Alpha Omega. You will not regret it. Sergio's freaking amazing. He's a guru on the mats. And so give it a go. And Sergio, I wish you guys the best of luck. It sounds like you guys are killing it. And so I'm excited to see where the next couple years take you guys because
thank you. Yeah, I'm excited
you're doing some great things. So I'll be following along and hopefully we'll be down in Laredo to have some tacos and some mat time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You guys are more than welcome.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for coming on.
All right. Well, thank you, Kaylee.
Thanks for listening to The Grip. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow along on Instagram at The Grip Pod to stay up to date on new episodes. That way you can send over a DM if you've got a question you'd like to hear answered on our roll call series. Now remember, stay sharp, be grounded, and never lose your grip. See you next time.